Welcome back to Grandstand Therapy, where every team, every driver, and even the FIA have a seat on the couch after every race weekend. This week, Lando Norris back on the top step for the first time this season. Oscar Piastri leaves Budapest with plenty to say after a frustrating afternoon. Lewis Hamilton, he just can't escape those penalties. Max Verstappen P2. Emi Antonelli with damage limitations on his championship fight. And of course, FIA drama and this week's special blue flags. So, who is headed into the second half of the season with momentum? And who is headed into the summer break with way more questions than answers? The waiting room is full, the couch is open. Let's begin this week's episode of Grandstand Therapy. And I have to start with the star of the show, and that's McLaren and Lando Norris. Lando had a stellar weekend. His words were best race that he's driven. I mean, there's no disguise that this is Lando's track, first off. And also, I mean, he just looked strong. I mean, I said it last week's episode in Belgium that if he would not have had that 10 place grid penalty and he would have started P3, I think he could have fought for the win. So this week, new track, and it's a track that suits him. He's done well at this track before. He's won this race many a times, and you know what? I think he just was on his game. He said the car felt great. He felt one with the car. You could see it during practice. He puts it on pole, and then he wins the race. It wasn't without its challenges. He did have a couple of errors, let's just say. So let's go to the other side of the garage with Oscar with McLaren. So McLaren in general, they did bring a few more upgrades to this weekend. And of course, Oscar is still trying to get to grips with this new generation of car. I think Lando's kind of figured it out a little bit more. McLaren's been working really hard with HPP, the engine manufacturer for Mercedes, trying to get things, to kind of match up with the car and their aerodynamics. And I think they're starting to get that right. And Lando felt really comfortable with the car this weekend. But heading into qualifying, Oscar qualified at P5, I believe. Yes, P5. Then in qualifying, we of course had several penalties. One for Lewis Hamilton again, which we'll talk about in a bit, and also with Kimi Antonelli, which we'll also talk about in a bit. So after the penalties were handed out, then that meant Oscar started P3, Lando P1. So start of the race, they get away well from the line. Lando gets away well, but then he makes a small mistake in turn two, which puts Oscar in the lead of the race. So, and then of course, we'll get into the minutia, I should say, of the race, but Max Verstappen's able to pull out around in front as well. He gets a great start and he ends up in P3 at that point. And really, Lando's leading the race for a while, and we get into team orders again, higher rules. So, what does that mean? As you know, last year, it means whoever's leading out front at the race gets the first call and strategy for pit stops. So, of course, Oscar is out in front, and so he gets the first call. Lando came on the radio and he kept saying that he was faster, and the radio conversation back to Lando was, Lando, we can't pit, I'm afraid. Lando says, you mean you won't let me? I'm miles faster. I'll put out a 10-second gap with no tires. I mean, he meant business because in the end, guess what? He did finish out front more than 10 seconds. So he wasn't, I think it was 15 seconds. So he wasn't joking. He had some serious pace in that car. So in the end, when Oscar decides to come in and pit and he gets put out in traffic, that became some serious drama. So he comes out in traffic and he has an incident with Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz is racing with Fernando. Blue flags are flying, but apparently Carlos says he didn't see them. There was an issue with that. But either way, he slams into the side of Oscar, damaging his car. He doesn't go off and he continues the race, but it definitely, caused him some issues. And Oscar came on the radio and was like, "Get out of my effing way, you idiot." Oh my God. So he was not happy at all about that, which I can't blame him. Um, I guess this is the time for us to kind of debate this whole blue flag situation with Oscar and Carlos Sainz. So we'll just cover it here for the sake of covering it. I I mean, honestly, Williams looked off pace all weekend, and I don't know how that car has managed to go from bad to worse, but it did definitely look worse this weekend. And you could clearly see Carlos making a ton of errors. And honestly, when it first happened, I was like, that's uncharacteristic of Signs to do that kind of thing and hit Oscar. It's just not normal for him. So I couldn't understand how that even happened if he wasn't given communication through his radio. I mean, you could clearly see the blue flags, they were everywhere. I mean, they were flashing on the little signs. So I totally get Oscar's frustration. I mean, Oscar was leading the race at that point. So that definitely cost him the lead of the race because of that. Um, he, I mean, the team tried to damage limit, I guess, give some damage control on that. They came on the radio and said that's signs that cost us that. And Oscar's comment back from the radio was, "Oh, mate, just don't blank talk to me right now. Nice of you guys to factor that in, by the way. Thanks." So he clearly was very frustrated. I again, these drivers are adrenaline is going, they're emotional, they're raw. I think sometimes when they say things on the radio and they go back and look at it after the fact, they probably don't like the way that they worded things. Oscar's always been very straightforward, very kind guy, but very direct, but very calm. And I think he was just really pissed off, to be honest, and which rightfully so. He was leading the race, and that kind of stuff happens. So Carlos Sainz, though, here, and we're going to get into the FIA rant of it all, but he was only handed a 5-second penalty for that, and he's fighting all the way in the back. So what's a 5-second penalty going to do? I mean, nothing. It's not affecting in anything, even in the points. So I don't know if that was again with the we'll have FIA therapy shortly. But Carlos came out after the race and said in the media that he was not getting the blue flag warnings on his steering wheel. So, okay, I guess the system was failing, but there was a bunch of bunch of screens everywhere with the blue signs. And two, where's his team? I mean, where's his team telling him that, hey, you have blue flags? There's race leaders behind you, kind of stuff. I mean, you always hear those kind of things, and I guess because of the fact that he didn't know because there was an issue on his he was looking at his dash and he didn't see it, he didn't apologize or say anything about it to Oscar, which didn't really rub Oscar the right way because he came in and made a comment like, "I don't really care what the excuse is." Basically, that's unacceptable. He needs to look at his mirrors. Um, then, of course, after the race, you've got Toto Wolff chiming in with a quote was, "It's disgraceful from both. It's disgraceful from some of the Teletubby engineers that sit on the pit walk of these teams not telling their drivers what's happening behind." I'm not sure what he means by Teletubby engineers, but I'm guessing like just sitting there and not saying anything or doing anything. I'm not sure where that was referenced. But either way, it's created quite of a stir within the paddock and within the fan base and everybody. Um, I, I don't know. I don't know where that goes from here. I guess maybe a summer break will cool off. Either way, it didn't help Oscar anymore because then he had a gearbox failure and complete DNF. And the gearbox failure, the team believed at the time, this is still the fact, but at the time was from him running over the curbs and it damaged the gearbox. So by this point in the race, Lando was, of course, leading the race. And they came on to Lando's radio and said, "Be careful with the curbs, stay off the curbs." I just kept telling him, "Stay off the curbs. You're far enough out. Take your time." that kind of thing, because they didn't want, obviously, that to happen to Lando's car so they could win the race. In the end, altogether, great weekend for McLaren and the car. It definitely had pace. And, are they back? I mean, I said last week, I think they will continue to push and get back. Are they in title contentions? Probably not, because lot, there is a lot more races to go. We're on the half of the season left, but it would have to take a serious drop off from specifically Mercedes and Kimi Antonelli. Also, other teams are progressing forward, so we'll see. But I think that it's a step in the right direction, and at some point they'll probably turn the page to 27's car. But I think they're headed in the right direction, which is great. And either way, it's going to make it more entertaining for us because we're going to have more people in contentions and we'll have more people on the podium, and we could potentially have McLaren coming away with wins. Because if that wouldn't have happened to Oscar, I do think they could have had a 1 and 2 this weekend. So good thing for McLaren on that front, which was fantastic. All right, let's get into Red Bull. So P2 for Max Verstappen, which I would have never guessed because, let me tell you, he complained the entire weekend. He came out and said, after, I think it was after qualifying, that this car does not have tire degradation. It has car degradation. It's terrible. Like the whole car. There's no balance to the car. Um, just the whole package is just not performing at all. In qualifying, he qualified P6, but then he was gifted 2 places to P4 because of the penalties. He had a great start. I said last week when he ended up on the podium that I was worried about his start, but this week again, great start off the line. So there have been improvements made there, even though their car is not, it's definitely the fourth slowest car on the grid, but you got Max Verstappen driving it and he's making differences with it. He had a great start. He launched up completely into third place immediately, and then he was able to get around the outside of the Ferraris because the Ferraris were coming thick and fast, and he was able to squeeze in there, and he ended up B3 by the time we got through the first few turns. That was fantastic. He had a fantastic overtake with Lewis Hamilton. Oh my gosh. I wish that I've said this already the last few races. If we could have Max and Lewis racing every race, oh my God, such gold. That was fantastic to watch. In fact, in the press conference following the race, Kimi Antonelli was like, "Oh, that was a great move, and that was fantastic. That was like old days. That was like 2020. I think he said 2024, but I mean, surely he meant like 2021. I don't know. Either way, I'm with you, Kimmy. It was great to watch. GP came on the radio to Max and said, "Well, that was quite special." Max says, "I don't want to complain, but that was, again, moving under braking. I mean, it's a nice action, but not right." Which really made me laugh because, of course, if you're new to Formula One, moving under braking became the Max Verstappen rule because he used to do that all the time in his younger days. So then he had another double overtake on the Racing Bulls. They were quite scrappy in front of Max when he was trying to go around them. And he had to come on the radio and he was like a bunch of morons with his like chest raised up yelling over the radio about them. They were acting erratically. I'm not going to lie. They were going at it. We'll discuss that when we get to them. But either way, I overtook that. Then we'll get into the tire strategy. I mean, once again, Hannah Schmidt just pulls off a huge strategy. I'm not going to lie, I was extremely worried. Max had said that when he started the race with medium tires, they did the first stop, they did hard tires. Isaac was kind of, I think he's P6 or 7 at this start of the race, and he also started the medium, but they pitted him first so they could kind of see how the hard tire was going to fill in the car, which they oftentimes do. Max had said after the race that the hard tires did not really favor well for that car balance at all, which he said every race, I feel like, this season. So it made sense that during the virtual safety car, no, I think it was the safety car itself, I think first, that maybe it was when the Cadillac went out, they switched to soft tires. And I mean, most of the field did as well. But when we got out the virtual safety car, when Oscar's car died, um, they didn't bring Max in. And he was on like, I don't know, 22 laps maybe at that point. And I was like, you're going to leave him out on those soft tires and gamble? But they did. They gambled and left him out and said he was in second place at that point. He went 32 laps on those soft tires, y'all. And I was just like, you better drag that car over the edge. I mean, he's dragging a tractor over the line on some 32 lap old soft tires. Good God. Man, so well deserved second place victory this weekend. And of course, I want to hear my Dutch national anthem again. But again, like I said last week, I'll take P2. But either way, again, you got Max Verstappen pulling out miracles with a car that has no business being up there on the podium. He also had damage on his car, apparently. He said there was a large hole on it. So, I have no idea how he was able to do that, as much as he complained about this weekend. Isaac Hadjar, another great performance weekend. A solid P6 performance. He, had a great, I think he had kind of a lonely race. He was just kind of back there, but he solidified P6. And so, where does Red Bull go from here into the second half of the season? Well, okay, Laura Mackey had a quote. He came out after the race and said, "We will try to see why we are so much on the edge of car balance, car corner balance, and car performing, car not performing, because it's been hard work for certainly the drivers, but also the team in these last few races to keep the car in the window." That car is really built to be on just the edge, the limit. And they are not able to get it into this working window. It has a very small working window. So, of course, Max Verstappen's always able to pull that out, and Hadjar's done a really good job of trying to match that as well. But it's not where it needs to be. And can they get it there? I don't think they can get it there for Max to be able to fight for the championship this year, but he certainly can get podiums, hopefully some wins, take points away from the top. But I think that they just try to find a car they can get going and get into 2027. Mercedes. So Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli, I mean, he had a great weekend. He had some damage limitations this weekend. He qualified P4. However, he got a penalty for 3 grid places for yellow flag infringement because during qualifying, Max Verstappen again had a spin. I don't know why I have to have an episode every week with Max Verstappen having a spin, but he did. So, Kimmy, this is where we get to the questionable flags, and I probably should bring this up during our FIA therapy, but essentially, he didn't lift enough, I guess. He barely lifted, so he got a 3 place grid penalty. He could have gotten more, so I guess they kind of, I don't know, gave a happy medium, let's call it. But he still managed to drag that car into podium and got P3. I think he could have done that if Oscar didn't DNF. I mean, maybe not. But I mean, we won't know. He did say he struggled with the car. It was a difficult afternoon. It's very hot conditions, the wind, and it was hard to handle the car and get it in the right window. So I think he was struggling too. I mean, everyone was really struggling out there race this weekend. So let's shift to George. So George, man, George just can't catch a break. I feel like it. I know he's beyond frustrated. So he qualified P7. So he did not qualify all that great this weekend. But the start of the race, so it it came on the screen saying he thought he had an anti-stall. It sounds like what happened is, so when they get on the throttle, like he only gave like 10% of the throttle, but somehow the software read it differently. Like it was in way up. I don't want to say 100%, but way up just for number's sake. And so that forced the car to kind of like jerk, start. That's kind of why his head went back and forth. And then pretty much it just died off like an anti stall. So that the whole field passed him. So he ended up dead last. But even though he was dead last and you didn't hear much about him after that, like he managed to get that car all the way to back to P7. So that was a great recovery effort for George. I felt like that's probably the best that car could have done this weekend. So either way, I mean, not a great weekend again for him. Can so I guess the question is at this point, I mean, can anyone else challenge Kimmy for the World Drivers' Championship? I mean, uh, I I thought maybe Lewis Hamilton might be the next guy in line, but he's there. Kimmy's got two full race wins ahead right now, and if he continues to get more points, he's just going to continue to increase that. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And, the other issue is, are they going to have less reliability issues? Because that has continued to be an issue every weekend almost. And so, I mean, I guess we'll see what's coming with that. I think that they need to work on that. I don't know when they're scheduled to bring any upgrades. I haven't really heard anything about that. So I don't really know. Ferrari. So, Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton, man, the guy just can't catch a break with penalties. I don't, who is after him? I think he needs an Etsy witch to kind of clear out the air. I don't know why the FIA is pinging him for all the penalties, but he is the one that's getting them. The last four race weekends, he's gotten penalties, which is crazy absurd. So Lewis Hamilton, he qualified P3, which is a solid weekend. Actually, going into this weekend, I thought it was Ferrari's weekend. I think I said in my closing statements at the end of the last podcast that I felt like Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were going to have a great weekend this weekend because this track kind of suits Ferrari's car. They got smaller turbo, smaller corners. It's not like long tracks, so I thought that they could do a better job this weekend. So I'm not quite sure where things went wrong, but either way, I mean, Lewis qualified P3, but then he got handed a penalty for impeding Oscar, and that was clear as day to me. That penalty I felt like was almost a slam dunk. I mean, you could see it. Okay. It was a slam dunk as far as the rules are the rules. However, Lewis Hamilton himself, even in the press conference following qualifying, he felt like he didn't even know Oscar was there. And the reason was because he got sent out first in peak in Q3, and he didn't even know why the team sent him out first. He didn't really want to go out first. And Leclerc was right behind him. So when he finishing his lap and his push lap coming around, he didn't expect Oscar to be there. He thought it was Leclerc, and he didn't know Oscar was there, is what he said. Therefore, he ended up impeding him. So, I mean, but the rules are the rules. So he got handed a penalty, and therefore got pushed back in the starting order. So he didn't start P3. So, it's a favorite. So, okay. So this is a favorite track of Lewis Hamilton as well. So he has won, let's see, 8 wins, 9 poles. It was the 40th anniversary of the Hungarian GP. So they honored him by naming a corner after him. So turn 2 is now called the Hamilton. He also put his handprints into the runoff area of the concrete. So that was a special monumental moment for Hamilton there. He finished the race at P5. He did have another 5-second penalty handed to him during the race for speeding in the pit lane. It was literally 0.millisecond, though, difference, but rules are rules. I mean, that one I feel like is, I don't know. He he came out of the pit lane and there was a safety car still, a virtual safety car ending, and Kimi Antonelli was coming up to the line and he just like halted because you can't overtake during a safety car. So they both were being very cautious about that. So when it came up that he was getting noted for pit lane speeding, I was like, "And where?" I mean, they showed him going in and out, and it was questionable. In the end, they said he was 1 second or that 0 second. I don't know, something dumb, and he got a 5-second penalty for that. So unfortunately, that hurt him and had him finish P5. On the other side of the garage, we have Charles Leclerc. He qualified P3. He finished the race in P4. He had a quiet race. I did have a radio note that I made on here, but that's all I kind of heard from him. The radio message from Ferrari was, "Can you?" Or sorry, the radio message from Leclerc to the team was, "Can you advise me a bit more? There's something that feels blank wrong with the car." Ferrari looks like overheating. You can just get back into the rhythm. That should help. Claire. what rhythm? I thought that was funny. But other than that, he kind of just had a lonely race back there. I mean, other than the start, I mean, that start, I mean, Max Verstappen went past those Ferraris. I really don't know how. Still don't know how. Either way, after that, you really didn't hear much from him after they had their pit stops and stuff. So, Racing Bulls. Okay, Racing Bulls, they were fighting each other so hard, getting in people's ways. I mentioned that earlier. Max Verstappen called them morons. They were really just, I think they probably had a talking to afterwards, I would gather, because, again, Red Bull family. Points, they did have a points finish, solid points finish again. You had P8 with Lawson and P10 with Limbad. So, and they officially have passed Alpine in the points in the constructor. So they're officially in fifth place. So they're they're really pushing it. But at some point, are they going to collide? I mean, that would be the biggest question for me on the Racing Bulls. Audi, strong performance. Hulkenberg finally got his first points of the season. He finished in P9. Bordelletto, Gabby just finished just a little bit out of the points. It was P11, so that's the first time he's been out of the points though in a while. He had been back to back races of P8, so he didn't this week. But Hulkenberg, good job getting his points there. Again, I think Audi's continuing to push along, getting used to this power unit, figuring it out. Bring us to Williams. Okay, so on a positive note, Alex Albon celebrated his 100th win with Williams, so he honored that with a special helmet this weekend. On a negative note, again, I think I said it at the beginning, not a great weekend for them. They both looked, that car looked worse. It looked bad. I watched a lot of the press conferences, and Carlos really didn't look very positive. He did say that I mean, he was asked about whether he was going to continue. I mean, the rumor mill, it's summer, so silly season. He was asked the question about whether he was going to continue to stay on with Williams or be going to teams, if he's committed to the project. I mean, he did say he was kind of committed to the project, just his timeline's different than it was before, because when he signed his contract in 24, he didn't think he'd be sitting in 26 with 6 points on the board. So, I mean, his timeline has changed, is kind of how he worded it. So, we'll see. But this blue flag drama that I've already talked enough about, I don't know. But they were nowhere. They were P17 with Alex and P18 with Carlos this weekend. So, great weekend at all. Aston Martin. Okay. I'm going to cover Aston Martin last because they were they weren't McLaren winning races, no, but they were the star of the show otherwise. So let's go to Haas. Haas, they had a rookie driver in for practice one. I don't know if that's why Behrman and Alcon didn't have a great weekend, but I mean, Alcon hasn't been having great race weekends, but Ollie looked really off this weekend. He ended up P19 and Alcon finished P16. Again, they're not seeming to get anywhere with this car. I don't know what is going on with Haas. Alpine, kind of the same thing. Alpine did not finish in the points this weekend. Gasly was P12, Colapinto was P15. Racing Bulls got ahead of them this weekend. They did not look at the top of the mid pack this weekend. So I'm not sure where that's going, what's going on there. And Cadillac. Cadillac had another weekend with a double DNF with brakes overheating. I mean, I don't even know what's going on. I mean, it's like every weekend this is happening, something with the brakes overheating, catching fire, or whatnot. I know they had, and they, don't get me wrong, their project was great. They came in, they're a brand new team in Formula One, so they look put together, very well organized. Um, I don't know what their development is, their process is, and kind of where they saw themselves being. I mean, did they look to improve after the summer break? I'm not really sure. I haven't really heard anything about their specifics of their timeline on their trying to get more ahead. I think a start is just their car not breaking down with either brakes or overheating. That seems to be the primary thing. So I don't know what's going on. If they don't have enough airflow, we got too much. I mean, a lot of these tracks we've been racing at are extreme temperatures right now, as Europeans having a lot of heat waves. I don't know if that's the problem or what, but either way, I don't really know where they go from here and what the development process is for them this season. I do know that they just wanted to kind of get their processes down this season. They weren't expecting to necessarily be in the points, so we'll see. I don't know what kind of things they have going for more development. So let's uh then like talk about Aston Martin. Aston Martin. Okay, so they brought a whole new B spec car to this track this weekend. There were 16 different upgrades on there, so basically a whole new car, whole new aero package. They will not have the engine until Zandvoort, but they brought their new aero package. And hallelujah, Fernando got out of Q1 and into Q2. He qualified P14, so I'll take it. Fortunately, Stroll, he broke his suspension during practice, so he wasn't able to complete on. But either way, they moved on up in the world because they finished the race with Stroll at P13 and Fernando at P14 ahead of even one of the Alpine cars and the Haas and the Williams and the Cadillac. I'd say that's moving on up. I had never been so happy but to be looking at the scoreboard to see where Aston Martin was. That was exciting to see. Very happy to see that progress. Um, the engine upgrade will be coming in Zandvoort, so it'll be interesting to see how that happens after the summer break. And then I think they're going to continue to bring some more updates to that aero package, maybe like Monza timeframe. So I think they're headed in the right direction. So that's really great to see. I will say that those side pods on that car look really sick. So I'm really excited about seeing the development of this car. So maybe they finally got it right for Fernando's sake. Okay, so let's finish up with our FIA therapy session of the week. So again, another system problem this time it was with blue flags. So not sure why we are having system breakdowns, number one. I'm also not sure why the penalties that are handed out, why there's either a lack thereof, like not giving ones that are blatantly obvious, or giving too many. Like, why are they picking on Lewis Hamilton? Like, they're just dishing them out. He's had, like, again, the last four races he's had penalties. I'm not saying like some of them aren't deserved. I'm saying that, like, I feel like there are ones that they're lenient on and there's ones that they're like just handing them out regardless if it was marginal. That it's just not very consistent. And the last thing is the TV viewership. It's not showing enough. Now, I don't know. I do have this in my FIA therapy session. And I don't know if this is it's probably not an FIA thing. It's probably F1 thing but either way, TV viewership, it's not enough. Like, we're not seeing like the midfield battles. Again, I brought that up last weekend and we're not seeing it enough this weekend. Like, I would have liked to see more of the Racing Bulls battling situation that occurred. I mean, they are putting, I get the small picture on the screen, but that's not enough. And also, like, we're just not seeing things like instant replays and stuff. We'll see them in like the little screen instead of a big screen, and we're not seeing radio messages, and we're not seeing certain moves. And I don't know whose fault that is, but I'm gonna probably say it every week until somebody gets it right. And the cool down room. The cool down room this week, I had a rant about it last week, and at least this week I had the drivers in there, and I loved it because we had Lando and Max and Kimmy in there. And it was funny. Some of the funny parts of the cool down room was Lando asked Max, "Did you mean to do that?" When they showed him overtaking Lewis, like, I don't say dive bombing, but he went around the outside. It was a risky move. He just went for it. And Lando asked Max, "Did you mean to do that?" And Max said, "Of course I did. If I didn't get it done there, it wouldn't have gotten done." And then Kimmy said in there in the cool down room, he said, because they were asking, like, what was up with the blue flags? And Kimmy was like, "Yeah, I kept having people coming on the radio saying blue flag." I'm like, "What? What? I don't have a blue flag. What? I'm not a blue flag." He seemed very confused about the blue flag situation. Overall, it was good vibes in the room, and at least we could hear him having great little conversations. So I love that. Okay, so the championship therapy session. So where we are at going into the summer break, Kimi Antonelli is 219 points. Lewis is at 169. George is at 160. So that means that Kimi is 50 points ahead of Lewis and 59 points ahead of George. So again, pretty hefty lead for Kimi Antonelli. So Constructors Championship, we have Mercedes at 379 and Ferrari at 307. and then McLaren's at 220 and Red Bull 177. So I mean, Ferrari is still in it. I don't know if McLaren can catch up, but they could maybe finish second or third. We'll see how that goes, and they continue to evolve. Also, big breaking news that's come out. So the Bahrain Grand Prix is now going to be hosted by the Malaysia track on October the 4th, between the Baku and the Singapore races. So those drivers better start training right now because, man, Malaysia and then to Singapore, that is exhausting. That's going to be exhausting weekend. But I'm excited about that. Malaysia, I did watch a lot of the Malaysia track during the winter break last year because I watched a bunch of old races. So it's a very great track and I think that like Kimi Antonelli probably gonna do really well there. Max Verstappen's probably gonna do really well there. It's a good track. So I'm excited for that. I'm glad that we're getting raced back. Basically, what they're trying to do is we need to have a minimum of 22 races this season, and we still do not know what's going to happen with the last 2 races of the season. So they're trying to get that to the 22 races. So they added this one for now. The Bahrain, it is still the Bahrain GP, even though it's going to be in Malaysia. So also, it could be they looked at adding Imola back to the calendar for maybe the last races of the year if we aren't able to go to Abu Dhabi. But the problem with that is it's December in Italy, freezing. So I don't know if that's going to be an option. So I don't think they quite know yet what they're going to do in regards to the last 2 races as we get into the second half of the season. So time will tell, and we'll look to see now that we head into the summer break. The next race will be Zandvoort, which I am totally excited about because I will be attending. So excited. It's my first time to go to an international race, and I have wanted to go to Zandvoort. And since it's the final, I hope it's not the final race there. In fact, Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli and Lando were asked in the press conference following the race how they feel about it being the last F1 race there. And Max said he wasn't really worried about it because he'll plans on doing more laps around Zandvoort because they host other categories of motorsports besides Formula One. So while he might not be racing in Formula One at that track, he still plans on doing some laps around Zandvoort. He loves Zandvoort, he loves the crowd, he loves the energy, he loves the track. So, and Lando kind of echoed the same. And I'm so excited to be sitting in the Orange Army and supporting Max Verstappen and getting to experience Zandvoort. And I can't wait to hear these new cars in person. And I am a little nervous about it being the first race the race I'm going to after the summer break because we do not know what could happen in the next 3 weeks as far as something to come out and what's going to happen when we get these different upgrades brought to Zandvoort. So could be interesting. And I will be doing the podcast live that weekend. Well, not live, but from the Netherlands, let's say. All right, so that's all we have time for today's session. So let me know in the comments section if you feel like somebody needs a lot of therapy after the Hungary GP. And if you enjoyed the sessions, please be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss another session. Until then, and after the summer break, I'll see you next time. Bye.